To determine how long is too long for no contact with an avoidant, you must first understand their unique psychological timeline and how their emotional processing differs fundamentally from anxious attachment types. While anxiously attached individuals typically process relationship loss immediately and intensely, avoidants delay their emotional reckoning often for months or even years after the initial separation. The avoidance timeline follows a predictable but extended pattern that can stretch much longer than most people expect or are comfortable waiting. The first 1 to 3 months post-breakup typically involve relief and validation of their decision to create distance. During this phase, they're focused on regaining their independence, enjoying their freedom, and convincing themselves they made the right choice. Any contact during this period is likely to be met with coldness or reinforcement of their decision to separate. Months 3 to 6 often mark the beginning of gradual awareness of what they've lost. The immediate relief starts fading, and they begin noticing the absence of positive aspects of the relationship they took for granted. However, they are still largely defended against these realizations and may actively fight against acknowledging their growing sense of loss. Contact during this phase might be received neutrally but is unlikely to produce meaningful reconciliation. The 6 to 12-month period typically represents peak vulnerability for avoidants, where they've processed enough time apart to recognize what they lost while still maintaining hope that reconciliation might be possible. Their defenses have softened enough to allow authentic missing and regret, but they haven't yet moved into permanent acceptance of the loss or found adequate replacement for what you provided. Beyond 12 months, the timeline becomes more complex and individual. Some avoidants reach genuine acceptance and begin building new lives that don't include space for their previous relationship. Others remain stuck in cycles of regret and longing, but develop too much pride or fear to reach out. The window for natural reconciliation often begins closing as they either heal enough to move forward or become too entrenched in their post-relationship identity. Understanding this timeline helps you recognize that what feels like rejection during early no-contact periods may simply be emotional unavailability due to their processing style. Avoidants need significantly more time than anxious types to access their authentic feelings about relationship loss, making patience crucial for anyone hoping for eventual reconnection. However, this extended timeline also means that waiting indefinitely for an avoidant's emotional availability can cost you years of your life during which you could be building meaningful connections with more emotionally accessible partners. The balance between respecting their process and protecting your own life momentum becomes crucial. The danger of waiting too long, when no contact becomes permanent disconnection. While avoidants often need extended time to process relationship loss, there's a point where no contact transforms from healing space into permanent disconnection that serves neither party's ultimate well-being. Waiting too long can result in missing the window where reconnection is possible and meaningful for both individuals. Extended no contact beyond 12 to 18 months often allows both parties to build completely separate lives that no longer have space for their previous connection. The avoidant may develop new relationships, move to different locations, or undergo personal transformations that make them fundamentally incompatible with who they were when they loved you. Similarly, you may outgrow the dynamic that once connected you and develop needs and standards that the avoidant can't meet even if they've grown. Prolonged separation also allows both parties to idealize the relationship in ways that create unrealistic expectations for reconnection. The avoidant may remember only the positive aspects while forgetting the legitimate challenges that led to separation. You may romanticize their potential for change while minimizing the real work that would be required to build something healthy together. The longer no contact continues, the more awkward and forced any eventual reconnection becomes. After 18+ months of separation, both parties may feel like strangers who share a history rather than people who could realistically rebuild intimate connection. The natural flow and chemistry that once existed may be irretrievably lost to time and emotional distance. Extended no contact can also become a form of avoidance for both parties. The anxious partner may use the waiting as a way to avoid facing the reality that the relationship is over and they need to invest in new connections. The avoidant may use the ongoing separation as confirmation that they're better off alone, missing the opportunity to develop greater capacity for intimacy through reconnection. There's also the risk that extended no contact becomes a habit or comfort zone that both parties become reluctant to disrupt. The safety of no contact, no risk of rejection, no vulnerability required, no possibility of renewed hurt, can become addictive and prevent both individuals from taking the emotional risks necessary for meaningful reconnection. Most significantly, waiting too long can cost both parties the chance to grow together rather than apart. Relationships have the potential to be healing environments where both partners develop greater emotional capacity through safe connection. Extended separation eliminates this possibility and forces both individuals to heal independently, which may result in growing in directions that make them incompatible, even if they both develop healthier attachment styles. The sweet spot: timing, no contact for maximum effectiveness. The most effective no contact period with an avoidant typically ranges from 4 to 8 months, depending on the specific circumstances of your relationship and separation. This time frame allows enough space for both parties to gain perspective while preventing permanent disconnection or complete life reconstruction that makes reunion unrealistic. The 4-month minimum is crucial because it takes this long for most avoidants to move beyond their initial relief phase and begin genuinely missing aspects of the relationship. Shorter periods don't provide enough time for them to process their feelings or recognize what they've lost. They may still be in the phase where contact feels like pressure rather than welcome connection. The 8-month maximum helps ensure that both parties haven't moved so far beyond the relationship that reconnection becomes impossible or irrelevant. Beyond this time frame, people often develop new attachments, life directions, or personal growth that makes their previous connection feel like ancient history rather than unfinished business. However, these timeframes must be adjusted based on several crucial factors. The intensity and duration of your original relationship affects the processing time needed. Deeper, longer relationships typically require longer no-contact periods because there's more emotional material to process and more attachment to work through. The circumstances of your separation also influence optimal timing. If the breakup was particularly painful or involved hurtful behavior from either party, longer healing time may be necessary before healthy reconnection becomes possible. Conversely, if the separation was mutual or amicable, shorter no-contact periods might be sufficient. The avoidance, individual psychology, and attachment severity also matter. More severely avoidant individuals may need longer processing time, while those with lighter avoidant tendencies might be ready for contact sooner. Their relationship history and capacity for emotional growth also influence how much time they need to move through their psychological phases. Your own healing progress should be the primary factor in determining contact timing. You should only consider breaking no contact when you've genuinely reached a place where you can handle any response, positive, negative, or neutral, without it destabilizing your emotional well-being or self-worth. The sweet spot occurs when the avoidant has had enough time to miss you authentically, while you've had enough time to heal, grow, and develop genuine emotional independence. This timing creates the best conditions for contact that comes from strength rather than neediness, from choice rather than desperation. Reading their emotional readiness, signs they're in the receptive phase. Determining whether an avoidant is emotionally ready for contact requires careful observation of subtle behavioral and energy shifts that indicate their internal psychological state has moved from defensive to receptive. These signs are often indirect and require understanding of avoidant psychology to interpret accurately. Increased interest in your life, demonstrated through social media engagement or questions asked to mutual friends, suggests they're moving beyond indifference toward curiosity about your well-being and activities. This interest indicates they're processing their feelings about the relationship and potentially evaluating whether reconnection might be desirable. Changes in their general demeanor and energy often signal internal shifts. Friends may report that they seem more introspective, less certain about their decision to end things, or more open to discussing relationships and emotional topics. These changes suggest they're moving through their psychological phases and becoming more accessible to connection. The avoidant may begin referencing the relationship or shared experiences in conversations with others, speaking about you more positively than immediately post-breakup, or expressing some regret about how things ended. These verbal indicators suggest they're processing the relationship's value and potentially preparing for reconnection. Physical proximity seeking, appearing in your spaces, attending events you frequent, or positioning themselves in your social circles indicates desire for connection that they can't yet express directly. This behavior suggests they want to reconnect but need the safety of natural encounters rather than vulnerable outreach. Most importantly, any direct or indirect communication from them suggests readiness for contact. If they've reached out in any capacity, liking your posts, responding to your stories, asking mutual friends to pass along messages, they're likely in a receptive phase where your contact would be welcome rather than threatening. The quality of any brief interactions also provides crucial information. If they seem warmer, more present, or more interested during casual encounters, it suggests their defenses have softened enough to allow meaningful reconnection. If they still seem cold or defensive, more processing time may be needed. What happens when you wait too long? The point of no return. There comes a point in extended no contact where the possibility of meaningful reconnection essentially expires, not because feelings disappear, but because both parties have moved so far beyond the relationship that returning to it becomes impossible or irrelevant to their current lives and emotional needs. This point of no return typically occurs when the avoidant has successfully replaced what you provided in their life through new relationships, personal growth that makes them incompatible with their previous self, or complete acceptance of single life that no longer includes desire for the kind of connection you offered. They've moved beyond processing the loss to building a new life that doesn't include space for their previous relationship. For you, the point of no return occurs when you've healed completely from the relationship, developed secure attachment that makes you incompatible with avoidant dynamics, built a life so fulfilling that their return would feel disruptive rather than welcome, or formed new attachments that make rekindling old ones feel inappropriate or undesirable. The cruel irony is that both parties may reach emotional readiness for healthier relationship at different times, missing each other's windows of availability. The avoidant might be ready for reconnection, just as you've moved beyond needing it, or you might be ready to try again, just as they've found peace with being alone. Extended no contact can also create so much emotional distance that even successful reconnection feels forced and unnatural. The chemistry and natural flow that once existed may be irretrievably lost to time, making any renewed relationship feel like trying to recapture something that no longer fits either person's current reality. Strategic decisions: when to break no contact versus when to let go permanently. The decision of whether to break no contact or accept permanent separation should be based on honest assessment of multiple factors rather than hope, desperation, or fear of regret. This decision will significantly impact your emotional well-being and life direction, making careful consideration crucial. Consider your own emotional readiness and motivation for contact. Are you reaching out from genuine strength and curiosity about reconnection, or from loneliness and hope that they'll fix the emptiness in your life? Contact should only occur when you can handle any response without it affecting your emotional stability or self-worth. Evaluate the realistic potential for healthy relationship based on the patterns that existed before separation. Has enough time passed for meaningful growth to occur? Have the fundamental incompatibilities that led to separation been addressed? Would renewed connection require either party to sacrifice their growth or compromise their standards? Assess the quality of your current life and whether their return would enhance or complicate your well-being. If you've built something beautiful during separation, their presence should add value rather than disruption. If their return would require dismantling the peace and stability you've created, it may not be worth pursuing. Consider alternative opportunities for love and connection that might better serve your emotional needs and life goals. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for both yourself and the avoidant is to pursue relationships with more compatible partners while allowing them to find their own path to happiness. The decision ultimately comes down to whether the potential for renewed connection justifies the emotional risk and life disruption that reconnection attempts inevitably involve. Sometimes the answer is yes, and sometimes the most mature choice is to let beautiful things remain beautiful memories rather than risking their destruction through forced reunion.